because we published, beloved. Hello, friend.
Hi.
How you been?
I've been thriving.
Oof, oof, oof. I saw you on your birthday trip. You was looking cute on the beach. I
Okay,
said,
thank you.
Braid is cute, body is cute, face is cute. And I'm so excited that you are here with me today because we're talking about your book, Babyhood Wellness.
Here she is.
Yes, we published, beloved. This is where I get to be corny and say, nigga, we published.
Period.
We wrote books, okay? So I just want to celebrate that you're here. You did it. Congratulations. You made it through a book tour, and I want to talk to you today about the entire experience. So, I know some of this, but I would love for you to share for the viewers and the listeners, you know, I mean, a lot of it is in the book, child. I was just reading the care and body section when you talk about the foundation that ensures that folks have access to housing and that they're taken care of and that they're transitioning. I just want you to tell folks about the journey you went on to get here because I think it's just so beautiful and also very unique.
First of all, thank you. And you know what is so funny that I never thought about? I've been writing for decades. I've been an editor for about a decade, and I never considered the impact of writing about yourself and how often you wind up having to talk about yourself because that's what you wrote about.
Yes. Yes.
So it's so funny when it's like, tell me the story. And it really is the
Hmm.
story of my life. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And it
Yes.
never changes. It's immovable. Um,
Yes.
but essentially, community care was something that I didn't really have access to for a long time when I was in food service and just
Hmm.
kind of living on my own and working very hard. And
Hmm.
I returned home and was about in my mid 30s with my parents' house on Long Island. And that's when I realized like it's cool to stay here for a little bit. And I think I was working at Olive Garden at the time. And
Hmm.
I'm like, but if I was really trying to get myself together, I need housing, I need dental care, I need mental health, I need
Yeah.
therapists, I had needs. And they
Yeah.
stretched beyond whatever Olive Garden could have offered me, however long I could have worked. And I
Yeah.
had many hustles and at one point I did all of that and I was a yoga girl, all of it, all of the things that wellness
Uh-huh.
they say is, and it
Yeah.
just wasn't doing it. And
Yeah.
that's when I started leaning on others for everything from mentorship to getting into writing to
Mm.
getting housing. And that's how the journey began.
Mm.
So I would say that Hood Wellness was a practice for me, a lifestyle on what it looked like to get by with, my
Mhm.
limited access and the help of people who had it. Uh, and it wasn't until the Black Fairy Godmother and some other organizations had fundraised $5,000. And
Mhm.
I said, yo, I know I can get my shit together. I
Yes.
know I can get my with this little bit of elbow room. If they can just
Yes.
help with me for a couple more months while I get stable,
Yeah.
and I realized then I was like, this is a book. And
Mhm.
this is a framework. I'm breaking it down. It's making sense. I've been living it long enough, but I needed other people to co-sign, but they
Yeah.
have the same advantages that I had, meaning a
Yeah.
little bit of space to themselves to figure things out, access to different levels of wellness that they may not have considered before. And that's how Casa de Tammy came about. And
Mhm.
so it was part community work, part field work, part research,
Yeah.
all of those things combined. Um, and so by the time I got signed, I had like a stack of research and
Mm.
ideas and all these things. I had already lived it. And it
Mhm.
was really a matter of like, how do I express it? How do I share it? You
Mm.
know, um, and so that was another journey within itself. But it's a funny thing when it comes to the book in my life because it really is congealed.
Yes.
When I think about when did the book start, I think about when was the first time that I told somebody like, "Yo, I need help." Like I
Mm.
need help. I feel like
Yeah.
that's when it began.
Mm. Ooh, child, as you're talking, I keep thinking about Marsha P. Johnson and Silva Rivera and their commitment to creating STAR, the Street Transvestite Active
Mhm.
Revolutionaries, and their efforts to create this site of respite and wellness within a very challenging and difficult political moment, but specifically for Black, Brown, queer, and trans people. And so I feel like when I read your book, it reminds me of all the ways we work to save ourselves, but when I say save ourselves, it's still always in community, right?
Right,
Like, it's
right.
always I love that you always reach back and say, "Here are the people who showed up for me. Here's how they showed up. Here's why I needed it. Here are the systems at play that kept me from my needs." And I'm just like, yeah, when you talk about theorizing and all that, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, this is high theory," right? This is like what we call in academia theory from the ground up,
Mhm.
right? This is theory built on life experiences. This is Combahee River Collective type of work. And so I think, you know, that's big to be holding that in your body. How then did you decide, "Okay, now I gotta get this in between the cover of this book on these pages?"
In that regard, I feel like I was mad lucky as an author
Yeah.
because I am child free, partner free, pet free. I work at home. And so
Mhm.
I was able to craft my entire life around the
Hmm.
writing process. And I was
Hmm.
doing it in New Orleans, no less. So
Yes.
I was rooted, and it's amazing how we overlook the
Mhm.
deep South and the resources that are there because as a New Yorker, I've never been more held as a Black author than I was in New Orleans.
I
I
believe you.
mean, Maurice Ruffin's, there's One Book, One New Orleans that,
Yeah.
they go as hard for me as anybody out here in Harlem. And,
Hmm.
the book culture in New Orleans was so thick that I would say about 70% of my social life was going to book signings, book events, writer meetups, reader, kind of read-ins, things like that.
Yeah.
So I had a very fluid practice of writing and reading, and it went on for about a year and a half. And then when the manuscript went to copy editor, is not long after that I was on the plane back home to New York.
Yes,
Yeah.
child. I love this. I love this.
No,
I love
I wish I could do it again. You can hear me in the background back in Harlem, and I'm like, "Oh my
absolutely.
god, it is too loud to create. I need to go back to the bayou," you
I love
know?
that. I love that you were writing in the South. I've been talking so much about Black Southern folk and how even on my book tour, going to the South was just so important for me. I feel like it changed me. And so I think your work is so interesting because you clearly read a lot, and I love a reading ass nigga. You know what
Period.
I'm
Okay, right,
saying?
like, where we listen, right, exactly.
Yes, and you are so deeply embedded in reading and writing community, and so, you come to this also as an editor, right? And so I would love to hear you explain how you navigated this being edited as someone who is a dope ass editor as well. Like, you brought this together, and then there's the revision process. What did that
Mhm.
feel like? How did that work for you?
It's funny because I say all the time, I'm like, the editing process is like taking your brand new bike that got a ribbon and a basket on it and taking it and putting it through a car wash every
Yes.
day for 30
Yes.
days. You're gonna
Yes.
have a very clean bike. Like your
Yes.
bike is gonna shine and that basket is gone. What ribbon? The
It's
chain
tattered,
is
bro. Yeah.
rusty now. You ruined it.
Yeah.
You ruined my cute little bicycle. For me, that's what the editing process feels like. And so I find myself as an editor, I am so, and this is my opinion. Listen, you can ask. It's so funny. Because I'm going to tell them myself because they're going to be on here.
Yeah.
But you know, believe that I have a very tender, loving way. My job is
Yeah.
to enhance the way, not
Yeah.
get in the way. It's not
Yes.
about what I think you should be saying. So a lot of times I might have like 6, 7 questions about
Mm.
one paragraph because I
Mm.
really want you to tell me what you are trying to say and make it
Uh-huh.
in the way that is as readable as possible. And
Uh-huh.
as someone who, many of the authors I work with, they're Black academics.
That's
So
right.
I got to sit there with my thesaurus. I got to really get into what they're trying to say.
Yeah.
I remember with All the Black Girls Are Activists,
Uh-huh.
so much of that editorial work was not a matter of, is this what you're trying to say? It was a matter of who would understand this the most and
Yes.
who would understand this the least
Yes.
and who's the person that this is written for.
Mhm,
And being
mhm.
able to meet them, I think that it is a beautiful thing we're doing. Ebony Janice, you do it. Bria Baker with Rooted also
Yes.
does it. I call it very nigga friendly academia. You know, it
Mhm.
is it is that in which bottom line, it's accessible.
It's
And that's
accessible.
what it's about. It's about making this work, these frameworks that are going to be co-opted no matter
Yes.
what. Everybody's
Yes.
going to spread it. So at least if we make it accessible, it's
Yes.
always ours. It won't be gate kept.
Absolutely.
You won't have to take a class at Dartmouth or wherever they teach this shit. You could just get it wherever you can get it.
Mm.
And so a lot of the editorial process with these thick frameworks, okay, very, very tight, very
Mhm.
researched and well cited, a lot of
Mhm.
that work goes into the language itself.
Yeah.
And it's fun, it's fun as an editor. But as an author, I'm like, just give it back because you don't understand it. I don't trust you. I don't believe you didn't even read this properly. Um, there were several editors on Hood Wellness.
Yeah.
The first one happened to be a white woman, and I will never forget I had a sentence in there, and I was like, "There are receipts that prove this." And
Mm.
she wrote in the track changes, "Receipts?" with a
Oh,
question
no.
mark. I said, "You're not the one. There's no way. There's no there's no way." And
Uh-huh.
so there's a lot of, and I say this to authors also with the copy editing process, you really have to pay attention to
Yeah.
what you said and what they think you said.
That's
You
right.
really have to pay attention and you really have to mean what you said, because the thing about editing is these massive changes don't just come at once.
That's
They're these
right.
little things. They're these little
Little chips away.
suggestions.
That's
These
right.
little exactly these little
That's
suggestions.
right.
So by the time it does go to the copy editor, that language that you speak is absent.
That's
That
right.
bottom line that was meant for us to get is not there anymore. Now it's just kind of a
Right.
wink because the
That's
editor
right.
thought that was the right choice.
That's
And
right.
so, you know what I'm saying? So I feel as though as an editor, I have an understanding of that. And as an author, I have an issue with it because I'm always
Mm.
looking for it. I'm
Yeah.
like, but why do you think that?
Right.
Do you
Where'd you
understand?
read that from? What word told you that?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly right. I would like
Yes.
to know in which this was where you came up with it.
I love how meticulous you are. I know you were Aries or whatever, but
Yeah, I
child, you be giving so much earth sign energy to me. And listen, it's so funny how you are describing yourself as an editor. That is exactly how Ebony Janice described you. That is exact.
really.
When I tell you, listen, you gonna watch that episode and be like, oh
Oh my god,
Lord, because when I tell you,
I
spot
love
on, the
that.
precision
I love that.
and the over one paragraph or one sentence or one word. And she was like, "Yeah, there was some time I was like, just take that shit out. You're right. You're right. I don't even need that.
And
You're
you know
right."
what? Let me tell you, I actually felt bad for Ebony Janice because before I was her editor, I was her colleague. Before I was her colleague, I was her fan. I had been soft stalking Ebony Janice from about 2018. I don't even think I would have wound up in New Orleans had she not have been gallivanted over there with her photo shoots
Wow.
and shit. I was like, wow, that looks pretty. And I was already in Little
Wow.
Havana, and that just looked like the better, blacker place to be. And so by the time I had gotten assigned as her editor, I will never forget. And she was like, I hope that you're able to see my text and my work outside of my social. I was like, oh, don't worry. Don't
Boo-boo, we
you
good.
worry. So a lot of my it's so funny. A lot of my feedback was like, it's interesting that you make this point because it makes me think about this live that you did back in 2017. Okay, how ridiculous can you imagine? And I would be writing it. I'm like, I know it's crazy, but it's true. And she should remember. And we
I
had a
love
field day.
it. I love this about you. I love this about you. I love it because as an author and an editor myself, in reading your work, there's a certain precision, right, to your work. And so I know that you came to the publishing process in a unique way. So I think I want to hear from you, the process of coming to your publisher, coming to we've talked a lot, you told me a lot anecdotally about how you were not agented, you were coming from the outside in. Describe that process for the listeners and the watchers here.
Absolutely. So yeah, no representation, no connections within the industry, worth dropping at a top 5 publishing house. So I basically targeted the publishing houses that were accepting manuscripts without a literary agent, as
Uh,
well as ones that were closest to my genre as possible.
uh,
The thing about Hood Wellness and the publishing industry is I knew how hard they were going to cling to the wellness aspect.
yeah.
And I thought about Hay House, and I'd
Yeah.
actually known some people that had worked at Hay House, and I was
Yeah.
like, "I'm not trying to cheapen my shit, but I'm trying to get my shit in print."
Mhm.
So it was on the menu, I would say, but Row House was first, and it was because they did not need representation. I had known Rebecca previously. At one point, she was a mentor to me as I was
Um,
transitioning full time into writing, um, and I knew that my work fit the criteria like to the T.
uh-huh.
So I wound up giving them my book proposal, and I spent a solid, I wanna say, like, 3.5, 4 months on my book proposal. I
Mm,
really, really put in the work. I really took in the time and understood the importance of, comp titles and
yeah,
marketing strategy, and
yeah.
I understood that I did not have the privileges of a team or anything flamboyant,
Uh-huh.
anything that looked like I'm gonna take this 50,000 mailing list. I didn't have anything like that. But what
Uh-huh.
I did have was community, and the book was about community. So I had came to the table with, what I still call a 75-25% strategy.
Yes. Tell us
Okay.
about it.
And yes. But the 75-25 strategy is basically 75% of my marketing was done outside of social
Mhm.
media, and only 25% of my combined platforms were going to be in direct conversation about the book. And the
Mm,
reason was because I had paid attention for years to other Black authors who were not relying on social media. They didn't have big social media presence.
yeah.
Um, even if I look at it right now and I look at authors like Vanessa Walters, who wrote The Lego's Wife, and I
Uh-huh.
think about Sarah Johnson, who wrote Grown Women.
Uh-huh.
These are
Uh-huh.
not women who are working, quote unquote, working social media. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to catch a support my pre-order campaign reel.
Yeah.
Um, and in a lot of ways, it's just like even with Kenny Ryan, there's a
Yeah.
conversation that's happening with the readers. It's not a cold calling, "Buy this book." It is
Yes.
you understand what I'm saying? So,
Yes.
I came to the table pretty much like, Imma just be outside and Imma just, promote it in that way and go to book fairs and things like that. And there are organizations that we're not we're not, following the poor and be poured into models, but a lot of them did. So,
Mhm.
from the time that I would say I went into pre-order status is when I started heavy with that strategy, and a major part of that strategy is supporting other writers.
That's right.
So every week, I mean, if I wasn't at a book signing, I was at someone else's book event. I was watching their webinar. I,
Yeah.
I was engaging. And it wasn't an engagement that was like, scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. It was
Yes.
an engagement of, I'm going to be persistent enough and consistent enough to be present where you'll want to be present with me because I'm here with you. It's not
Right.
going to work with everybody, but it's going to work often. And
Right.
so by the time my book tour came around, I had things like a dinner at Adane Bookshop in Brooklyn, and
Mhm.
I also did an open mic night at Blue Stockings in the Lower East Side.
Uh-huh.
I was very innovative. It wasn't your regular ragtag 30-day cross country at, prestigious book signings. It was
Uh-huh.
dead ass like that Black bookstore in the city you didn't even know was there.
Absolutely. Yes.
It was just I'm just coming out. And that was without a team, that was without, any heavy marketing. I definitely didn't have a publicist. I tell
Uh,
people this all the time. I respect your desire to get write-ups and reviews and overviews, and I'm not going to say that that's not fun, but I
mhm.
will absolutely tell you that does not sell books. And
Mhm.
so there's a pageantry that comes with this industry that makes you think that that's the goal. But if you real writers understand the
Yeah,
goal is to be read and the
that's
goal
right.
is to have the space to continue writing.
That's
That's
right.
what we're here to do. So it's okay if, you know, Publishers Weekly missed me this time around, but Hood Wellness has been out for 10 months now, and
Mhm.
I just got back from my last tour. So
Mm, mm,
obviously she's
mm.
being read and appreciated, you know?
Mhm. Listen, when I tell people about this book and that I know you, they're always like, "Oh, like, oh, I saw that. Oh, I have that book. That's on my to be read list." And it makes me so happy because I know how hard you worked. I watched you in that backseat of that cab when you finally got your copies and you were in that car and you were saying, I did this. I did this and I'm proud of myself. It wasn't to stunt on anybody else. It wasn't to say, oh, look at you bitches back there. Look at y'all. It was to say, oh my gosh, look what I did for me. And I think that it's so beautiful to hear you say that, you did this work, you busted your ass to do this work, but then you have also leaned into the places where people are excited about you. You're going to a publisher who's excited. I mean, that dinner that we had in November was in part because your publisher is just so lovely, right? And like wonderful. I'm like, oh, you buying me snacks too? I get snacks. Thank you, because I am hungry. Thank you for these
You know,
nuts,
I don't
right?
think people realize that about Row House,
Yeah.
that because we are founded on mutual aid and because it's the literature of Black women that keep the walls
Yes.
up, we just move different. We
Yes.
just move different. We
Yeah.
understand the value of this work and the sacrifice that goes into this work. And
Yeah.
so there's a level of community that is very, very transparent and understanding in the reality that it's not just about your success is my success, but I legitimately need you to do well
That's
so
right.
that we do well, so that
That's
I can
right.
enjoy doing well.
That's
Because
right.
if you're not doing well, then I'm not doing as well as I
I'm
think
not
I am.
that's right.
You
That's
understand?
right.
You feel me?
That's right.
So it's that energy. It allows us to, when it's challenging, when it's just not going our way, we
Uh-huh.
remember like, yo, but we still in the game though.
That's
Like,
right.
did you look at your bookshelf lately?
Listen, and I think so this is what I also think is super dope, about you and how you move, right? And so, you've talked about your book tour and your intention. This is something that I've actually been talking to Black women and queer folks and brown and disabled folks in this process. I'm realizing a lot of us do this. Like, we will go, I don't care if it's two people in the room, it might be a lovely elderly woman from the local church and her niece, and I'm gonna have a whole conversation with them because that's who's here. And I'm gonna treat them, with care and worth and value. That's something I have also seen from you in every space that you enter in terms of how you engage with readers and with community members. I've watched people walk up to you and stare into your eyes like, thank you for writing about me. And you're always so gracious. And so I just want to hear from you, I guess, along the book tour, what it was like for you. Because you told me a little bit about how surprised you were about the different parts of the book that people have resonated with. And I would love to hear from you about what that's been like along this journey over the last 10 months.
You know, there are three moments that I feel define the tour. And the first moment was in August when
Mm.
I was doing a signing at Books and Books in Miami. And it was the night before. And it was it's just something just dawned on me like, ain't nobody coming. Ain't
It
nobody,
happened.
ain't
It
nobody
happened.
coming. And I said, I was at the beach and I said, but you know what? It's okay because I'll be there and it's
Uh-huh.
okay.
Uh-huh.
And my publisher, Rebecca, had called me and was like, are you sitting down? I said, yeah, I was just thinking about how I'm doing that event tomorrow. Nobody's going to be there. She's like, oh, that's okay. And then she told me about that I had gotten a star review from the American
Uh-huh.
Library Association
Uh-huh.
book list. And I said, I think that's really how this shit goes.
That's how it goes.
I
Right.
think this is how it
That's
goes.
right.
And it allowed me to truly just chill out, like really
Yeah.
just enjoy this process instead of trying to anticipate the next moment or maximize this moment and
Right.
just enjoy what this is. And the next one was when we had dinner
Yeah.
after our event at the Free Black Women's Library with Drew
Yes.
Dixon. Everything
Yes.
about that is iconic. Who
Beautiful.
we were with, the fact that we were there together at the Free
Uh-huh.
Black Women's Library. I've since gone to other events that Ola has facilitated and,
Yes.
just had this amazing time and
Yes.
so grateful to be in community with her.
Yes.
But we had dinner that night and it
Yeah.
was you and I and Tanya Denise Fields and my
Yes.
publisher.
Yes.
And, and we're sitting there and I'm looking around and I'm like, this is exactly what I was hoping for.
Same.
This is truly all I really wanted
Same.
was to be at the table. This is the table that I wanted to be at.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that was another moment that allowed me to have, I've had so much fun doing that since that night because I remember it's just better to have fun.
It
Um,
is.
you know, and the last stop that I did at Houston, I went to a book club. They
Yeah.
had a vision board party, the Black Women Read Too book club, and she just
Mm.
did not believe me that I was going. And I was like, "No, I'm going to be there. I want to be there. I love vision board parties. I wrote about it.
Yes.
Well, the book club did. I dragged my sister down there. We were in Houston, girl. We were doing it.
I
Oh, we
love
were
it.
doing it.
I love
It was
this.
we had so much fun. And would you believe she gave me an award? This
Mm.
Black Women Book Club
Mm.
gave me an award for best book,
I
and
love
my
that.
name was on it,
I
and
love this.
Hood Wellness is written
I
on it.
love that.
And I busted out in tears. And I could not believe it. I said, "This is literally of the things that I dream. This is so good that I hadn't dreamed this.
Yeah.
I didn't hold my breath for
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
and it was just one of those moments where I'm like, I am so grateful that I have stayed rooted while I've
Yeah.
been doing this so that I can value this moment. I don't even think I had gotten good footage of it. It was a mess. My
Yeah.
sister was there. That's what usually happens though,
Yeah.
I'm so much in that
You're
moment.
present. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I try to tell everyone often when it comes to your book tour, you really want to celebrate the fact that you have one. You
Mm.
really want to be grateful about the fact that anybody cares about your little book.
That's right. That's right.
When you know what goes into this industry and the amount of money, 5 figures that people are pumping into their publicists, into buying books in bulk, into
Mm.
contacting, Reese Witherspoon and every
Child.
other book club, all of the finagling that goes on in this industry, you must celebrate that anybody cares about your little book. I
That's
don't
right.
care if it's in your town, outside of your town, the next town, if it's virtual. There's so many different ways. And a lot of times, you only really feel how dope that is when you've been celebrating other people's books.
That's right.
You know
That's
what I'm
right.
saying?
That's
And you're
right.
paying attention and you see the work that goes into that. And you see how hard that author is working on their own book. And you're inspired as well as being supportive. And
Yes.
that's really what the whole pour and be poured into is all about.
Yes. Oof. I feel like you always be preaching. Oof. Let me just sit with that for a moment. You are so right. You are so right. There is something about we say in community. And I think a lot of people who are not in community don't know what that means, right? It's as you said earlier, it's not transactional. It's not I'm showing up because I hope one day you'll do something for me. It's no, I think you dope and I fucks with you and you cool and this is great work, right? And it doesn't have to be from a place of scarcity. It can be from a place of, hey everybody, look, my friend is really smart and does cool stuff, right? Like I love telling people like my friends are so cool. Like I love
Yeah,
my friends, right? Like
me
it's
too.
and I'm so grateful to be in your orbit because I do feel like I've learned so much from you since watching you on. I also low key stalked you on social media before we met. So just so you know.
Same, same. And I be trying not to tag you, but I still be talking about what you're talking about so niggas know that I'm talking about it too. I make sure to talk about what you're talking about just
Listen,
so
every second just to see like what's Tammy say about this. Let me
don't
just
ever get it confused, okay? Don't ever. And can we just really quick since you mentioned it, I love that you had a hot take in the beginning of April.
child.
Dr. Jen has a hot take about Issa Rae, and the world is like, Jen, you hater, you fool, you must leave the island. The month ends with the world having a hot take about an Issa Rae production. I said, Dr. Jen is an oracle. If
Why?
we was
Why?
doing it right,
Why did I have the same reaction? I said, oh, so now y'all could do it. Oh, okay, okay,
I said,
all
was
right.
she just 3 weeks too early? That's called an oracle.
Come on now.
That's
I
a
had the exact
prophet.
same reaction. I said, "Oh, okay, so now we okay." I was a griot article, but this is fine. Alright, okay. It's alright. But I think so this is interesting that you say that too, because one thing that I do also really appreciate about you is your presence on social media, right? Is the fact that you are completely honest. You are yourself. I have never seen you in a space not be fully Tammy. I have only ever seen you show up. And this is something that's important to me because I'm the same way. I don't I got to a point where I said I'm done code switching. I don't know the code. I don't want the code. Don't give me the codes,
Mhm.
right? And I think that it comes through in your presence and also in your writing, right? And so, how, I guess I want to ask for folks who are listening, how do you maintain that in a world that does not want us here, that does not want us to write, that does not want us to exist? How do you wake up and you say, fuck it, this is what I'm going to do?
There's what I write for myself, and there's what I write to connect.
Mm,
And usually it's in the same lane, but a lot
mm,
of times what I'm writing for myself might be too much for the reader that I'm usually connecting with. And
mm.
so, what a good example is right now, I get a lot of pushback for talking about how we treat Haitians, specifically Dominican Republic, but also all of us. And
Yeah,
it's one of those things where in the back of my mind, I think about this every day. I've got this modest fans in Australia, right? And
yeah,
they can't get enough of me. It's ridiculous. I don't get it, girl. They just love it. Okay, I know. And I
yeah,
and I heard about it a couple of times, but then I had gotten contacted by a couple of book clubs. And I'm like,
yeah,
how are you guys hearing about me? So I think about them when I be talking my shit and crashing out.
yes.
And I think about and I say to myself, well, I would never want anyone to get me confused with anyone else. And
Mm,
the reality is that before I was an author, I was a reader.
that's right.
And when I was a reader, I was also socially conscious.
That's right.
So there's never been a divide for me in what I live and how I live and my beliefs. And so I try to think about sometimes I'll say, is this the most important conversation or hot take I have at the moment?
Mhm, mhm.
But a lot of times I think to myself, I just think this is worth hitting send.
Listen.
you know, I also think that we are living in a new era as writers where there are more rules than ever. They don't always align. We don't know where they're coming from.
Yeah.
They don't often make sense. And
Yeah.
they're often, you know, angled at the marginalized author,
That's
the
right.
Black woman author.
That's right.
And so I think it's important for us. There are those basic rules like, leave reviewers alone and reviewers shouldn't tag you. But there are also these levels of nuance where they might say, um, your readers don't want to know about your politics. Well, as a writer, I can't write without sharing mine.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't, it's not possible to pretend or to avoid. That's what politicians do. There's
That's right.
levels of pageantry that
That's right.
I have divested from, and I know for a fact that I don't have to do.
Mm.
And so I think that a lot of us are very afraid of saying the
Mhm,
wrong thing. And we're also very
mhm,
afraid of what happens of being approached. And I can tell you, as someone
mhm.
who's dragged on the internet about every 6 to 8 weeks, you'll be okay. You'll be okay.
Wait.
You know, refine your rules of engagement
Yeah.
and you'll be okay.
Absolutely, you'll live.
You know what I'm saying? But what I think would be worse is to pretend. And there are more a couple we talked about this. There's more than a couple of
Mhm,
authors who lay it on thick. you know? And so I that's better than me.
mhm.
Some of us are out here trying to get those pre-orders like Girl Scout cookies, okay? They are fiending for those pre-orders, honey, okay? And they want you to know, okay? They want you to know that they need it, okay? And I think that's the difference from writers and people who want to say, I wrote a book. is that for people who want to say I wrote a book, they just want the
Yeah.
pageantry and the aesthetic of
Yeah.
all of it. They want that
Yeah.
photo, all of the things, the book opening and the book
Yeah.
touring, and they want all of
Yes.
that stuff. But for the writer, the truth is that we have already killed ourselves by the time the book is over. So
Right.
just thinking of having to reemerge in the earth, holding this book, is like, I, I can't do no more.
Oh, no, I wanna crawl up into the fetal position, child, immediately.
Right. We had the ego death already.
I think it was so my last question is around, like, if there was one thing you could change, but I wanna contextualize that question because I feel like you are so honest and so transparent about your process, um, that, I feel like you did this incredible thing on your tour where when you identified a thing to change, you changed it. When you wanted to be in a space, you curated it, right? Like, I think that is incredible. So I do want to ask the question, is there one thing you would change? But I also want to acknowledge that I've watched you adapt and become flexible. And this is not resilience, right? This is I understand the room. I see the room. Here's what I don't want to do and here's what I do want to do. Here's what I'm going to do. And I want to uplift that about you as a person because to come through the life experiences you have had, you have to be that way. You have to be able to read the room, not because you want to become it, because you want to decide what you're going to keep and what you don't need. And I love that about you. So I'm sorry. Go ahead and answer the question. Go ahead.
Thank you. What was the question? Was there
What is
anything I would
one
change?
thing you would change on the whole journey from proposal to publisher picking to book tour to today?
The one thing that I would change is, I because I am so community uplifted, the reality is there was very few times in community that I've been burned. There have been
Uh,
individuals that I haven't gotten along with, all kinds of things like that. But once my life was really narrowed to Black women organizers, activists, writers, and creatives, it got a lot easier to navigate. And that was about 10 years. So
uh-huh.
after I gotten signed, I got in this job with an online publication. And, this guy was well connected, well traveled, big name dropper. And I thought,
Uh-huh.
well, you know what? I think this is what this is about. You kind of work your way in
Uh-huh.
and I did that for about over a year. And there were just a series of unsavory positions, a series of just not cool shit, you know, but there was always this promise that we're going to support you and your book.
Yeah.
And because my marketing was communal
Yeah.
marketing, I was very reliant on individuals who were like, "Yeah, we've got you." And
That's
so
right.
I learned some lessons there because they absolutely did not,
Yeah.
and just pretended I didn't exist. And it sucked, and it kind of shocked my ego a little bit, and it also made me question my own, like, what do I think about is going on half the time. I thought
Yeah.
that was community, that was transactional.
Yeah.
What is going on in this industry? He's also a Black man, and that didn't help. And so, it put this fear in me. It put this fear in me moving forward of like, who do I trust or what are people looking at me? Are you respecting me as a writer? Do you think that I'm the fresh air fun kid? You know
Mm.
what I mean? Like, what is going on opposed
Yeah.
to what you're saying is going on? And I think that if I had to do it over again, I would have stayed in the spaces that I knew to be true,
Yes.
opposed to ever trusting people or platforms that present themselves one way and then behind closed doors are a completely different way.
Yes.
So thank you, America Hates Us, for the lesson. Okay?
No. Chat.
Thanks. I definitely will, review contracts more before I take jobs.
Oof. 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 I know. And I think that's one of the things that why I wanted to create this podcast was to have these very frank and earnest, transparent conversations about what it means to come into this type of industry and not be, the well-connected people or the people with a million followers or the folks who can just say, buy my book and then 75,000 people go out and buy the book, right? I think about Percival Everett all the time because I don't think I've ever seen this man speak. I just don't be seeing him outside. And that man sells a gajillion books, right? Like,
Mhm.
I think a lot of people look there, right? They look there to see what this world is about, but it's not that, right? Most of it is what we are talking about. It's going into rooms and being like, oh, this energy is off. I don't need to be here, right? And then having to tiptoe while thinking about that. And I really love my book and I need the right people to see it. So I would love to hear from you if there's anything else you would love for listeners and viewers to know. What do you wanna leave them with?
Yeah. I I feel like writers always say the same thing. Keep writing. Keep writing. Keep reading and absolutely do that. But also, you know, be the energy you want to receive. And
Uh-huh.
so, whether you are fleshing out an idea for your book, or you're looking for a literary agent, or
Uh-huh.
maybe you just went into pre order status,
Uh-huh.
um, it might sound counterproductive. It might sound like it's not the right direction,
Yeah.
but be supportive to the other authors who are coming out. Make
Yeah.
sure they know who you are. Share
Yes.
their link. People can
Yes.
buy more than one book.
That's
Don't
right.
it sounds it's I know that it might sound counterproductive, but I think about the books that came out alongside Hood Wellness. Um, A Black Girl Caught in the Middle by Shaniqua Golding,
Uniqua. Yeah.
Rooted by
That's
Bria
right. Brie
Baker.
Baker. Yeah.
There were some amazing books that came out, and I'm in community with these women solely because of that. And I
Yes.
never asked them to promote my book. They
Same.
never asked me to promote their book,
That's right.
but it's something that we've done as being in community with each other and respecting our work.
That's
And I
right.
don't think that they would have had the opportunity to support me if they didn't know I existed.
That's right.
So
That's right.
there's a level of showing up that's involved as a writer.
Yeah.
And one more thing, respect your craft, write to
Mm.
completion. If there are
Mm.
any reader groups that have, where you can share your work and take feedback, go to that group.
That's
You
right.
Writing is a contact sport, and
That's
this
right.
publishing industry doesn't really let you get past either way. So the only way that you're going to learn is by going outside.
That's
Go to
right.
these writer events, go to that book signing, try to see who the manager is, pay attention to the author. Is there if they're like me, then there's usually someone within that realm who is there also who can give you a
That's
leg
right.
up or some kind of information. You really don't know until you go.
That's right.
So I think it's really important to stay in community and to stay in the flow of the overall writing culture. Don't just take Thread's word for it. Don't just take
Mhm.
Twitter's word for it. Find out for yourself. Every city is different. Every genre is
Right.
different,
That's right. The
you
tastes
know?
are different in different cities and different regions. Listen, you I don't know how you be knowing. I just listen. You are so right. The day that my book came out, January 23rd, 2024, is the day that Uchi Blackstock's book Legacy came out. And also Crystal Wilkinson's book, um, praise song for the kitchen ghost. And I saw those books and I said, "Ooh, those look good."
Yeah.
And I shared and I talked about I think Uche is brilliant and lovely. I think Crystal is brilliant and lovely. And Crystal reached out to me on pub day and she said, "Congratulations, dear. You're published." And I said, "Oh, you're a real one." Right? Because there are people who I know and have known for over a decade who did not reach out to me and say,
Hmm.
"Congratulations, that you're
My
published."
book came out the same day as Fred Joseph's, and our first communication was June 1st when we had a book signing scheduled in Philadelphia or somewhere over there. And we did this thing where there was Canva material of both of our faces, and yet we both shared
Mhm,
just his face, and then me just shared my face, right? So I already knew what
mhm.
the energy was. And then the bookstore wound up not getting his book, and so he didn't go to the event. And I'm like, I want to do the real nigga thing, but I want to do the right nigga thing.
Yes.
I wound up email sent him a DM, I think, and I'm like, sorry I missed you. Good luck to you. Good luck to your book. I've
Yeah,
read it. Good luck
yeah,
moving forward. How
yes.
exciting for you. And that was, really just the bulk of it. And yeah, so you reach out to people, and you can be in community.
That's right. That's right. I adore you. I think that what I sometimes Forget to say out loud is the stuff that I love the most about you. I'm working on this gratitude practice where I tell people who I really like that I like them. And so I just love the alignment between what you write here, how you show up on social media, and who you are as a person. I am grateful for you. I'm grateful for your energy, and thank you for coming here. And we published, beloved. We did it. You did it. You got this dope ass cover. I said, this is some black shit.
I know, I know. I came up with the concept. I came up
I
with the
love it.
concept, and there was a night I used to have these panic attacks at 3 in the
Mm,
morning thinking about this book. And I remember I was like, Rebecca, they cannot think that as a shower cap. Niggas will
mm-mm,
kill me. I will never be able
mm-mm.
to promote this book. And she's like, they're not gonna think that. I'm like, I'm afraid, Rebecca. I'm
No,
afraid.
it's beautiful. It's
Thank
beautiful.
you.
I'm so grateful to watch your journey, and I cannot wait for your next book.
Thank you. And thank you for always holding space for me. I really appreciate it, my nigga.
Anytime, anytime.